I feel like, well, for one thing, I was like literally the cliche like target for bullying, which is a whole other story, which also potentially due to the autism. I was really good at trying to be social, but I never quite got the unwritten rules, but like I was aware enough of social norms to know that I wasn't doing it right, which is the worst, because if you're not even aware of it, you can just like barrel through life blindly oblivious. But if you're aware enough that you know you're not doing it right, but you don't know how to fix it, you're like... It didn't really affect how I saw myself. I think in that degree, the autism became somewhat of like, it's also somewhat protected me, because I was also quite blindingly oblivious to the fact that I was being bullied because of me. Like, I was just like, oh, okay, they've picked me, all right. And like, I didn't like it and I wanted it to stop, but I didn't think I'd done anything, like, it didn't feel like I'd done anything personally wrong to make it that way. It was more just like a cosmic accident. It's like, there's no part of your life that's not autism, because everything that you see and hear and experience is through the lens of autism. Like, you can't remove, and that's why autistic people have there's a real push in the autism community at the moment for people to stop saying person with autism. And I mean, look, I don't get offended if someone refers to me that way, because I know they don't mean it in a bad way, but if you wouldn't say person with blackness, it's that sort of thing. It's like every part of my identity is affected by the autism. There was a lot of like taking things really literally, like never quite to that sort of point, but if someone was like, oh yeah, just throw it out the window, like, or whatever, I'd go to literally, yeah, or like take a seat, I'd be like, but obviously, you know, I learned after a few times of someone saying that take a seat doesn't mean take the seat, so I got to the point of, you know, knowing, but whenever I first hear things like that, I'm always like, take the seat? And people were always like, are you fucking stupid? I was like, probably. Not dumb, just autistic. There was a lot of like, I don't really understand facial expressions. And I've been able to learn things like sarcasm and like, you know, take a seat or whatever. But I really struggle with like, some people know what other people are thinking by the expression on their face. I'm like, everyone's face, like, it drives people nuts, because I'm like, are you okay? Are you sad? Are you sad? Are you sad? You look sad. Are you sad? And they're like, no, I'm fine, I'm just tired. I don't really know massively what affected me as a child, because I was always either like overriding it and just like, just tolerate it, just tolerate it, just tolerate it, or like keeping it in, you know? And I'm very fussy about things like, if I have a seat, that's my seat. Don't sit in my seat or I will cry. And like, you know, in art classes in high school, like if someone sat in my seat in the art room, I would just stand next to them just being like, are you going to leave yet? And eventually they'd just get so uncomfortable that they'd get out of my seat and be like, oh, like, all of the things were all so minor as singular things. I think that's the thing, like, as individual traits, they're all so small, but when you smack them all together and put them on one person, like, it's quite overwhelming. Nothing I hate more than people saying everyone's a little bit autistic. It drives me nuts. Because, yes, everyone can have traits, certain traits, one or two traits or whatever that they share with autistic people, but when it becomes an autism diagnosis is when it becomes overwhelming and like starts to affect your life. And you know, the big ones for me is like the ones that do affect my life is that I cope really badly with frustration is a really bad one. Like I can cope with a lot of things, but I can't cope with feeling frustrated. If I feel frustrated, my brain just like shuts down. And you know, in my like first semester at drama school, I had this teacher that wouldn't explain things. She would just like hint and wait for you to work. And like that was people made some amazing discoveries. But one of her classes ended with me sitting on the floor, like on the stage, just crying. She dismissed everyone early because they couldn't get me off the stage. I was just crying. I was like, because I was so frustrated. And that is sort of my response to frustration. Like curl up in a ball, scream, cry, maybe smack my head on the wall a bit. very naughty, don't do that. I'm really bad at telling if I'm making someone upset. Like, I'll often accidentally say something, not realising that it's really, really hurtful. And I hate that. And like, I always work my hardest to not do that. And if I've done that, to then rectify the situation. Which, having that sort of awareness of why I do those things also makes it easier to fix them. Because now I know when I need to like be aware to fix things, even if I don't know when I'm doing it. I felt stupid. And when people would call me stupid, they're like, oh, maybe I am stupid. I think I've dealt with most things and still deal with a lot of things. I'm very good at like opening a box in my brain, being like, I'm going to put this thing that hurt me in this box, put a lid on it, like sticky tape the lid closed, put it in the shelf with, 2,000 other boxes. So it's always funny because I have had that question a few times, how did you deal with those feelings growing up? I didn't. I just put them away. I was like, okay. And I still do now. And I think arguably that's also a very autistic thing. That's actually why a lot of autistic people can actually be really quite happy, even if we're very different and actually quite often picked on, because we're very good at putting it in a box and being like, okay, cool. The best thing about being diagnosed with autism, you'd think that something like that would be very isolating. But being diagnosed has opened my life up to more opportunities and more people than I ever thought it would. I get to talk to I do a lot of talks to young people with autism, like people who were in my situation. And it's like, I don't know how to explain to someone who's not autistic what it's like to walk into a room of autistic people, because it feels like I'm walking into a room of people I already know. And every single person that I meet with autism is so different and so interesting and unique and funny. And so many people go through life like not expanding their horizons of humans. It's not just changed my life to know about myself, but it's changed the demographics of the people who I spend time with. And like, everyone always thinks about, when I got diagnosed, how it affected me, like as in dealing with myself. But really that's the smallest thing, because it affected the way I see myself in terms of me feel very validated, but also it just completely changed the track of my life, because I was going like one way and it completely changed the track of my life to somewhere so much better. Because of the people that I spend time with now, I'm a far more like socially aware and far more like accepting person. And I think it's really important that disability isn't just like shoved in a corner, because my autism is definitely a disability. There are points in my life where it is definitely disabling. And I don't know anyone who wouldn't argue that. But you can also love it at the same time, because it's so, different flavours of brain is what I usually say. Or like different flavours of autism, and it's great when you meet an autism person with the same flavour of brain as you, because it's just... people think, the whole question that people get is like, what's your special talent? Autistic people have special talents. And I think that it's not so much that you have special talents with autism, but the most amazing part of being autistic is the sheer passion you have for your thing. And whether that's trains or vintage stamps or, my friend Megan, she's obsessed with the Bakerloo line. She knows everything about the Bakerloo line. It's great. She lives on the Bakerloo line too. And for me, it's theatre, and so people might say things like, you're really talented in theatre. Well, I'm not necessarily talented. I'm just intensely passionate. And that's what I love about autism. The stuff that you're passionate about is just 100% more than the average person. Listening to music with autism is the best. It's so good. And I love going to music gigs, and I love playing music, and just I can't sit still when I hear music. I feel it all. And I think living with autism is kind of like living on a roller coaster. Sometimes you go through the really big downs, but the ups are so fun, and you're never boring. I find a rock and it's the best day of my life, or I see a really funny pigeon and it's the best day of my life. And I really love that, whereas other people don't see that. I think that's the coolest thing about having autism, is that when you love stuff, you love it so much, and everything is the greatest. I bumped the camera. It's really fun being me. I really like it. And if someone offered me a pill to take it away, I wouldn't take it. I might take a pill to take away some of the negative things, like the self-smacking. That's not good. I'm always worried I'm going to like break my hand. But I don't know anyone, and I've met a lot of autistic people now, and we're all very, very different. Like, I don't know one person, arguably even people who are more disabled than I am, and you know, who lead higher levels of care and stuff. I don't know anyone who would take it away, and I think it's really telling that the only people who would take a cure for autism are parents of autistic children, and that's a whole other story, because they can't cope with it, not because the child can't cope. I don't know anyone, like not one single person who I've ever met with autism has been like, I would cure it, because the good parts of it are just so fucking great. Like, I like being autistic. I wouldn't change it.